Victor Moscoso is an illustrator, graphic artist, and a painter. Victor Moscoso was born in A Coruña, Spain, in 1936. 3 years later, he moved to Brooklyn, New York. Moscoso's family moved to America because of the rise of the Nazi regime. Victor Moscoso would study in New York at Cooper Union and later at Yale. Victor Moscoso would study under Joseph Albers. Experience teaches that in visual perception, there is a discrepancy between the physical fact and psychic effect. Moscoso would leave New York for San Francisco. Moscoso would be called to the draft and immediately would enroll at San Francisco Art Institute. In 1967, Victor Moscoso made a poster for the Blues Project, which caught the attention of the world. Moscoso would state, "Between the colors that are equal at the opposite end of the color wheel and your mind, which has been trained to read figure and ground, you can't figure which is ground and which is figure. That's why it vibrates. The mind can't handle it." Moscoso would state, "One of my revelations was to reverse everything I'd been taught, making lettering as illegible as possible. I'd been taught at Cooper Union that lettering should always be legible, so I said no. My lettering ain't gonna be legible." The goal of my poster was, ideally, if somebody was across the street, they'd see the vibrating colors and say, "What's that?" They'd come across the street and spend a half hour or a week trying to read it. Victor Moscoso describes, "I think of what I'm gonna do. I make a little sketch. It can be very rough, but I find if I don't, I get myself into a jam. Before I go on a trip, I look at a road map. So the sketch could be very rough, but I gotta have an idea. The idea comes to me on its own, usually." In 1968, Moscoso collaborated with Rick Griffin and Robert Crumb from Zap Comics. Victor Moscoso is a brilliant designer that captured the world's attention with vibrating colors, illegible text, and controversial topics. Pushed and even broke all of the limits of traditional graphic design.